have an impact on America, we share them, we make them public so that they may be able to act fast and act quickly, and then maybe will be removed away. And if they don't, that's their own headache. That will be their own headache, because I was passionate as an American who love this country and do not want no harm to come to America or anybody in this country. And then I spoke presumptuously, and therefore I carried that burden on my shoulders that I wish I could give back. That's why I use this Sunday school to also share some of these stories. When one of my classmates talked to me about Nigeria, to ask God to intervene, and I jumped on it too to intervene. That's why we are saying, when people didn't ask you to pray, you don't know what you're going to get, and it becomes your problem, because now your assumption of risk in law. I will use the legal term to explain it, what we call our assumption of risk, or maybe estoppel. So for those who are lawyers, we understand the doctrine of assumption of risk, so that they can explain to that. So for that reason, you go to ply into people's life, and then you find something like I found with Nigeria, and then it became my headache. And that's the reason why you see me always talking about what's happening in Nigeria. Before, when I had it was I was not listening to news about Nigeria. I didn't really know any Nigerian or much of Nigerians because they were not in my cycle. I was oblivious of what was going on in Nigeria. Now it became now a yoke, a burden on me. So, but that was good that I did not make a promise that I have to share with them what the Lord shares. So I learned my lesson from America not to do that again. So we use this as a training and as a teaching to you to beware that God may share things with you, but it doesn't mean that you should go and act on it. It doesn't mean you should trample somebody's privacy by prying into their life, making inquiries about people's and things. No, I don't worry about things like that. I already have enough from the Lord of load that the Lord have put on my shoulder, and not to take on more by trying to go and pry into what's going on in people's life, private business and homes, even with our enemies, my enemies, those that like to go and gather, we see them. I just ignore them and just leave them alone, because what they're doing is foolish. Like those I saw in not recently from Nigeria gathering with their witches and their wizards and with their evil altars and all the things they are doing, and I just ignore them. And because I know what they're doing is foolishness, and they don't have any power or any authority from those evil places to come to do harm to me. Because of the dominion and the power that Christ that live in me has over them, and authority that is given unto me. So I use this as a teaching, and I will cite you again to a place in the scripture so that you learn. And I do this Bible Sunday school today because I know we have been giving messages and talking on things that is of national matter. But so we are giving you something that can help you personally to know how to pray. That you cannot assume that because God knows everything, if you need to pray, you can pray, or be lazy to pray. And like those that ask people to pray, and for them, but they don't want to pray. They want to remain in their lifestyle and their nature, their kind of life, rather than be obedient to God. And they want you to pray for them. People have come to me and say, "Pray for me," and I tell them no. Just like I just told you, I said, "No, my wife asked me for this prayer for someone else," and I told her no, and until the person asked for the prayers. And if the Lord says, share the dream that you had that is from the Lord, which I was aware that I mentioned to my wife, yes, I've seen that a long time ago, but I didn't even tell you, my wife, because the Lord didn't ask me. So now that you have seen it, if the Lord said share with her, you share with her. If she asks for intervention, for us to intercede, then we will intercede. And you see also, Paul is an apostle that always asks for prayers. And you notice that all the requests that Paul made in his writings, especially when he talking to Corinthians. In fact, almost quite a lot of churches, he asked for prayers, and he asked for the brethren, his apostles, the apostles and the disciples. He asked from them. So once the person is not in our church and is not a Christian, that is a connection. And for those ministers, and if you, I don't know where they were trained and how they were trained, but learning from Christ, it is unethical for you to violate the privacy of somebody or divulge a divine privileged information, confidential information from God. You don't just go around and share it out with people because God shared them with you, no matter who it is, no matter the personal relationship we had with the person. So that's why when you say things to me, then we don't share it unless I have authority over you. You know, like a husband over the wife, like Christ over the husband, like Christ over church, like a general overseer over the church. So you see that there is a divine privilege in that connection, that you walk in that privilege. So just like the way my wife shared that with me, and I guided and reminded and reinforced the teachings that we have so that she can pass it on, because a lot of people find it more easier to go to her than coming to me. So as part of that teaching, as you can see in the example of 2 Timothy in chapter 2 verse 2, so that you can share with her those that come to you, those that can be entrusted to maintain the doctrine that we receive. But as we said in the book of, if you go again in the book of Luke chapter 13, and look, and I'll read this, Luke chapter 13 verse 34 to 35, you will see Jesus Christ himself speaking. And if you remember at the time, he said that, and he said, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones those who have been sent to her, how often I want to gather your children together, just as a hen gathers her young under her wings, and you were unwilling. Behold, your house is left to your desolate. And I said to you, you will not see me until you say, Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. That's a curse.